I came out as transgender to the vice president of the HR department in my workplace the day after the Donald Trump was elected in 2016. I did cry, yes. On a platform of hateful rhetoric towards many groups of people, and specifically to my story, transphobia. So I knew that going through this process would be against a background of podcasters saying my experience isn't real, or that I'm some kind of boogeyman, and also politicians using the promise of making my life harder to gain votes. But admittedly, I wasn't prepared for how everyday people, like government office clerks or healthcare providers, would become immediately hostile as soon as they find out I'm trans, or what kind of impact that would have on me. You see, transition isn't just taking hormones and asking your friends and family to call you something different. It's also legal. To change my name on my license, I had to go down to St. Louis County City Hall, file some paperwork to request a court date, pay $150, wait months for the court date, appear before a judge, announce my transness to the judge and everyone else in the room, and beg for the mercy of a legal name that will keep me safe, which isn't guaranteed. The judge could say no, and also hope that no one in the room has a gun in their vehicle and MAGA worms in their brain. If you receive approval from said judge in the form of an informal court order, you take that informal court order to have your name change published in a paper for 3 weeks. And then that paper tells the court that you have sufficiently announced your transness to the world to be permitted the privilege of a legal name that won't put you in danger. Once you're granted the official court order, you take that to the DMV, along with all your other legal documents, and then get turned down at 4 DMVs because apparently there aren't any rules against the clerk claiming you don't have the right paperwork before you even push it across the counter for them to see what you have. They can tell you're trans, so you don't have the right paperwork. So then you get on trans community message boards to figure out what DMV you've got to drive to in St. Louis to get a license with a picture that looks like you and a name that makes sense for your bearded face. And then go through a similar runaround for your social security card, passport, health insurance, credit reports, birth certificate, if you can even get your birth certificate changed at all in the state you were born. I can't. Thanks, Texas. And specifically, thank you to the Texas politician passing through St. Louis who hit me up on Grindr looking to hook up. I don't believe these politicians hate us nearly as much as they try to convince their constituents. Not to mention, you also have to change every account with every business that knows your name, and just crossing your fingers that every time you get a customer service representative talking to you that isn't indoctrinated to hate you. And that's just the name. There's also the gender marker. Apparently the government, and I'll specifically talk about Missouri state government, is very concerned with making sure that if there's an M on your license, there's a pee-pee in your pants, because during the Biden administration, the Missouri legislature passed a law that you cannot update your gender marker unless you have surgery on your genitals to make it match their standards of what a man should have between his legs. And after you get that surgery, that's usually over $50,000, not covered by insurance, has a 50% rate of complications for transmasculine surgeries, takes a year or longer to fully heal, if it does fully heal and you regain sensation, and if there are no complications. After all that, you need a specific letter with specific wording from your surgeon to take to the DMV, which they then have to scan and send to Jefferson City for someone in that office to approve your genitals for society. And then you can get a gender marker on your license that makes sense for your face so that maybe one day you can apply for a job without your medical history becoming a part of the conversation, or buy alcohol without your chromosomes being scrutinized. And of course, my transness comes up when accessing healthcare, whether it's related or not. I had an ongoing medical issue that I was avoiding going to the doctor for because by that point, several little things had happened that had made me not want to go to the doctor while trans. But in June 2020, I went to the ER for this medical problem that had progressed to a point where it scared me. And even though I had gone through the whole runaround of getting my name legally changed on my license and my health insurance, and even though I pointed out to the receptionist at the ER that I had changed my name, as I was getting my vitals taken, some healthcare worker came around the corner shouting the name that I don't look like anymore, to which I meekly responded that that was me. He asked, not believing me, "Your previous name redacted?" I told him I was trans, and while blood is actively flowing out of my body due to the medical issue I was seeking care for, he responded with a hint of vitriol, "So you're actually a woman, got it." And God forbid I try to access healthcare related to my fertility and expect healthcare providers to read the information on my chart and employ basic common sense and decency. This past January, I was in a hospital gown, in the process of getting the IV inserted into my arm to have my fallopian tubes removed. A nurse walked by, stopped, and shouted indignantly, "Why is there a man in here getting a salpingectomy?" Someone approached from down the hall, assuring her that the information was correct. She repeated, "That man, in room 1 right now, is here to get his tubes tied." The person attempting to calm her from her meltdown then quietly said, "Yes, well, he's female." And then apparently at no point after that, or while I was continuing to be prepared for surgery, or while I was under, was a conversation had that maybe the one singular person that caused a scene about me being there should not be the healthcare provider present when I awoke from anesthesia, because there she was, calling me she to my partner after 8 years on being on testosterone, 7 years post-op from having top surgery, and having had my legal name changed to Andrew and my gender marker changed to male for 7 years too. When I asked her, less than 60 seconds after regaining consciousness, I might add, why the hell she was calling me she when I had a full beard on my face, she claimed she was going by what was on the paperwork. She knew I was trans, so I will never have the right paperwork. But the thing is, I have gone through most of these experiences ultimately with a sense of gratitude. At least that 5th DMV processed my paperwork to update my license. At least I wasn't refused care for being trans in the ER, which is legal to do in Iowa as of this year, by the way. At least the nurse only shouted my medical information down the hall and misgendered me and didn't cause me harm while I was under anesthesia. I don't really care whether or not people generally believe I'm a man or not. I just want to be able to navigate the world safely. But the ability to have that small amount of gratitude or feel any sense of safety is not guaranteed in the future across this country. Since I've gone through those experiences, life in the US has only gotten harder and more dangerous for trans people, because politicians are spending millions of dollars convincing people that I am a threat. Do you really think a person afraid for their safety to go to the doctor until they can't stop bleeding is the threat to America these oligarchs say they are? Do you really think preventing someone from changing their gender marker on their license has any positive impact on our collective well-being at all? There is no win with this transphobic rhetoric. I don't care if you personally think I'm a man or not, or if I'm performing manhood badly or not. I want families to be able to afford groceries. I have no interest in trying to convert your children to transgenderism. I want corporations and governments held accountable so that your children can inherit something better than a war-torn, climate-ravaged planet. You know, I joined the storytelling project so I could ultimately say one thing. Yeah, I'm trans, but I just want to do good in the world and live my life. I'm not your enemy. Thank you.